Warning. Information found within the Foundation database is classified. Access by unauthorized personnel is strictly prohibited. Perpetrators will be tracked, located, and detained. We here at the Foundation have been given strict guidelines for every one of you to listen, learn, and attempt to comprehend sensitive subject matters as an alternate form of testing. You willfully have joined this project, and any exposure to the subject material is considered highly dangerous, and viewer discretion is advised.
Greetings, my friends, and welcome to your Scp Foundation Orientation program. As our new C-Class personnel, you will be directly interacting with some or all of the SCPs mentioned within today's presentation. You are reminded that all information given today is done so at the sole discretion of the site director, and sharing anything without authorization of a Foundation member with the correct clearance level will result in immediate termination of your contract and the administration of Class B amnestics. By entering the room, you've agreed to be bound by these rules and to abide by all security protocols, containment procedures, and other Foundation regulations.
Hello, everyone.
Good
Hello.
morning. Hello. Have you all slept well? Have you all tried some of that new coffee we got?
I didn't like the coffee very much, to be fair.
I
Doesn't
don't
surprise
trust
me.
any of the coffee anymore.
Listen, the coffee
But-
itself tastes like ass, but...
But
Not
it's what
after
they
last
put in
time.
it.
I-
Wait, what happened last?
True.
You know what? This is a story for another time. I'm
Yeah.
assuming that it's involving something gross and potentially deadly.
At least you're not having issues like at your site like I did mine. Last week,
Yeah.
we had one of the wonderful SCPs finally make transfer over there. You know, the one that is just literally stinky pus. Well,
Mm.
apparently, somebody didn't know how to properly contain it, and then it had a little leak. And no one knew what it was for the longest time. But here we are, weeks later, feeling the pain of it.
Did someone drink it?
No, God, no. It's terrible.
What
But-
what would happen if we drank it? Just asking, like, just hypothetically.
Ingestion of it has caused all total organ failure on the last time that we tried it.
Maybe we can get some of that to give to Jerry if he steals my fucking lunch again.
Fucking Jerry, I swear, you should spike some of your food with that. Don't see how he fucking likes it.
Yeah,
Side
but that'll
note, for
be,
legal
like, the
reasons, I
one
can't
day.
condone killing another Foundation member. However, if it just so happens to accidentally be contaminated,
Whoops.
ethics committee who?
It's like, oh no. But on another note, I want to be rather transparent today. I have gotten Overseer confirmation for something very dear to us. And that is Alice.
Yes.
How long have you worked for the Foundation?
Couple years.
Only a couple?
I mean,
You're being
it's not
modest.
bad.
You're being modest. Anyway. You've been level 4 for about 3 years now. I checked the records. And we are cleared to give you a promotion here in front of everybody. So, welcome to level 5. And your new codes will be active within an hour. I just need to send in the docket. But welcome to the same playing field as me and Frank here.
Yay!
Thank you very much.
Oh,
Thank
such
you.
this is so nice.
I had to pull a few strings to get it, but come on.
Thank you.
Welcome. It's good to have you on a equal footing. It's how it is. We can get you in some of the nitty gritty.
Oh boy.
I don't think nitty gritty. Come on. Brand new, right? Like level 5. They're gonna see some crazy shit, and it's going to mess with their minds forever.
That's very true.
Amazing.
As much as we read over some of the documents, it still doesn't cover the exact feeling that you get when you're near them. So there's a lot of difference. So Hope you're ready for that.
Oh boy.
Now, we're gonna go ahead and go on to our first little read here, and it is known as SCP-1370. Let's hand it off to you, Alice.
1370.
Thank you. Uh, SCP-1370 is Object Class Safe. Special Containment Procedures. SCP-1370 is locked in a fireproof glass display case, stored in Gallery 27. If the case becomes damaged by external circumstance, any container with dimensions of at least 1.5 by 0.75 by 0.50 meters will suffice as a replacement until a new display case is available. The Ethics Committee recommends that any long-term storage case contain enough space for SCP-1370 to move freely. Level 2 personnel and higher may remove SCP-1370 from its case at their discretion, but will face disciplinary action for failing to secure it properly afterward. SCP-1370 is self-aware artificial being constructed from various electrical devices and tools. It stands approximately 1 meter in height and is capable of moving its articulated joints despite the lack of any power source or motors. SCP-1370 communicates in a monotone voice via a speaker mounted in its chest. Its head is a voltmeter soldered upside down to a neck joint, giving it the appearance of a friendly smile, but containing no active sensory devices. However, SCP-1370 will react to visual and audible stimuli, and its ability to do so is hampered when the head is covered or otherwise restrained. Its design appears to give more importance to aesthetic concern rather than function, as evidenced by the poor center of gravity that hampers its ability to balance and walk. It is therefore believed that SCP-1370 was created as an art object and later imbued with anomalous properties rather than designed with those in mind. It can currently speak fluent American English, French, and Latin, and is capable of learning new languages. Other facets of intellectual capacity have not been clearly outlined, as SCP-1370 is invariably hostile in all interactions with any being or object it interprets to be sapient. This includes, but is not limited to, animals, Foundation personnel, civilians, audiovisual equipment, and security cameras. If SCP-1370 encounters an object it believes to be sapient, it will attempt to engage the object in combat while introducing itself with a variety of elaborate titles which appear to be selected at random. Examples include Doombot 2000, Robolord the Destructor, Prime Minister Sinister, and Deathclaw Killflag. SCP-1370 will often include variations to these titles based on responses it receives from personnel. Foundation staff have successfully introduced Patheticon and Garglemost and Pesterbot to its lexicon. Addendum. Many tests on SCP-1370's prowess have been run, each confirming that SCP-1370 lacks the physical aptitude to cause damage to any living being. Test 13708239 exposed SCP-1370 to a common houseplant, with a speaker hidden in the plant's pot. After 1370 was provoked verbally, it attempted to fold and twist the leaves of the plant within its grasp before incapacitating itself. See the log that follows. Researchers L. Allen and T. Balsoon carry SCP-1370's case to a testing chamber. The case is set down 1 meter from a potted philodendron and fitted with a small speaker.
Release me, insects. I am Doom Master 1370, Master of all Doom. I shall be the herald of your destruction.
Researchers leave the testing chamber and the case is opened remotely. Although no security risk is determined, the test requires SCP-1370 to focus on the plant rather than nearby personnel. Observations are made via an opaque glass window to prevent SCP-1370 from attacking its own reflection.
At last I am unleashed upon this earth, so deserving of destruction. All shall rent within my pincers. All shall be trampled beneath my feet. I am Shivatron, despoiler of mirth.
Hello? Hello, can you hear me?
Who dares? All souls will burn. You will feel the sharp sting of my wrath. Identify yourself so that I may sing damnation upon you as you die.
I am a split-leaf philodendron, a semi-woody shrub with large glossy leaves. These leaves can grow up to 3 feet long.
Your mockery spells your doom. I have arrived. You will be crushed betwixt my digits.
SCP-1370 falls over and is unable to right itself. After approximately 6 minutes, it knocks the pot over, which rolls into a position that pins SCP-1370's body to the floor of the chamber. Researchers enter to return SCP-1370 to its case.
I cannot take this little fucking thing seriously. Like, he's trying his best.
Poor Pastor Bot.
Oh my god, oh no. He's
trying.
Poor little lad.
Oh, I laughed my actual head off about 4 times during that thing. I thought it couldn't get any more ridiculous.
I was
And there we
trying
go,
not to
there
laugh.
it is. Oh, I applaud your professionalism having to read that without any warning.
I do love Pastor Bot.
I'm trying to drown myself apparently, hang on.
There's a lot of things that I get to see in the organization. I never got to interact with SCP-1370 myself, but I have heard stories of the one time he chased around a cat.
I wouldn't have thought the cat would have standed for that. It would have just blown in his general direction and over he goes. You
I
have
believe
bested
that's
me
what
in combat.
No, what happened apparently was the cat jumped on its head and it tried to pinch him. It didn't work, so he just got knocked over.
Oh my god. Why is the case fireproof? Is it to protect SCP-1370 from a fire in the Foundation? Or
Yes.
because there's no way that dude
Yes.
has a flamethrower. We should give him a flamethrower.
That'd be
We're
the
not getting him a
worst idea.
flamethrower.
That would be the
Okay.
worst
It's a
idea.
terrible
What?
idea.
He would turn it on and he will just torch himself straight away.
Well,
Just
yeah,
blow
we're not
himself
supposed to
backwards.
get him killed. Come on.
Oh, he's not
That's
really
like
alive.
putting 999 in a room with Pastor Bot. That's cruel and unusual.
Cruel and unusual. Never mind. See, not everything is just instantly dangerous. Just most things.
Always.
This one is adorably so.
He's just I've heard people describe me as being unable to fight my way out of a paper bag, but I think this guy literally would not be able to fight his way out of a paper bag.
No,
Even if it was wet.
It's a plastic bag.
But why would it be a wet plastic bag? Paper melts when it gets wet, right?
No, you can't get out of a plastic bag. Like a grocery bag.
Yeah, a paper
That's
bag.
the joke. Not,
can't
not
fight your way
paper
out of a
bag.
paper bag, a wet paper bag.
All right.
I am vastly confused as to your guys' conversation, but
It's all
it's
joke.
it's just a saying. It's a saying where I grew up in the deep dark depths of Her Majesty's England.
well, none of that'll matter now. We're all SCP workers. Foundation, be damned.
Yep. Just some of us sound better than others.
All right.
None of us are better than each other anymore.
Yeah, that would true. That's a fair point. Although I did think it was interesting that they specified that 1370 can speak American English. I'm gonna go in there and I'm gonna teach him all the good words like pavement and streetlight. And I'm trying to think of some other examples of normal like crisps. Yeah.
Are you going to teach him the difference between crisps and chips?
Yes, obviously. And the difference between chips and French fries.
Oh, lordy.
As you can tell, we are professionals here. We always stay exactly on
We
track.
can't take you anywhere.
This is not the only downtime we ever get in this job, I promise you.
To be fair, we say pavement in America too, so.
We do say pavement.
You're welcome. God save the Queen.
Oh, yeah. That's
Don't say queen.
right away.
Fun fact, classified information, the Queen is an SCP.
Shush!
Well, they're gonna find out sooner or later.
Everybody should learn that one on their own.
I'm fairly sure she'll be on the list soon.
Possible.
I'm still waiting for the IKEA.
Yeah. Yeah.
No. Let's go ahead and move on to the next one.
Alrighty.
Yes, sir. Right. So I believe that is item number 1432. Object class, Euclid. Special containment procedures are as follows. Recovered instances of SCP-1432 are to be placed in a filing cabinet in the containment chamber. A standard television set and DVD player are provided for testing purposes. Personnel are not permitted to remove instances of SCP-1432 from the containment chamber for any reason. Police station communications are to be monitored for murders involving an unusual DVD. In the event of such a report, a recovery team will be sent in to retrieve any instances of SCP-1432 and any individuals potentially exposed to SCP-1432's effects. A D-Class personnel is to view a suspected instance of 1432 in its entirety and then be evaluated for indications of 1432's effects. Following testing, any individual affected by 1432 is to be reclassified as a D-Class personnel and placed in solitary confinement. Monitoring for instances of SCP-1432 that have been posted online must be conducted on a regular basis. Such instances of 1432 must be eliminated immediately after and their IP address traced if possible. SCP-1432 is a 17-minute silent video sequence which has been found on numerous generic DVDs in a variety of locations within the US. The sources of these DVDs currently remains unknown. DVDs are placed in the mailboxes of individuals apparently selected at random. The video sequence consists of an abnormally large doll pursuing a young Caucasian female in a short white dress and high-heeled shoes through a series of rooms and corridors with disparate levels of lighting. The size of the doll is inconsistent over the course of the film, with the doll being portrayed as larger or smaller in order to fit through different areas, although the doll is never shown changing size. Near the end of the sequence, the doll corners the young woman in a large, high-ceilinged room. There is then a break in the video for 44 seconds before the female's body is seen lying motionless on the floor of the room. The camera gradually moves up the body to reveal that the doll's head has replaced the female's head on the body, at which point the videos end. Subjects viewing at least 5 minutes of this video sequence would experience the full effect of 1432. 1432 causes subjects to believe that both they themselves and all other humans and animals are artificially constructed dolls. Subjects believe that both their bodies and key characteristics of their personality, or in extreme cases their entire personality, have been artificially constructed by an unknown being or group of beings. The effect has proven immune to all amnestics currently in the Foundation's possession. This effect will result in clinical depression in approximately 89% of subjects. In addition, 73% of subjects will attempt to kill at least one other individual. If successful, they will then systematically dismember and or disembowel the corpses of those they have killed in an effort to prove to others that they are all artificially constructed toys. Non-psychopathic subjects will exhibit intense emotional distress during this occurrence, but will invariably believe that this distress has been implanted in their personality by their creators. It is currently unclear whether this compulsion to kill others is a direct effect of exposure to 1432 or a natural psychological reaction to 1432's actual effect. The initial instance of 1432 was recovered from a police station in a redacted town in Ohio on the 11th of the 5th in a redacted year, following a police report that a 12-year-old male, hereafter referred to as Subject 1432-01, had murdered and then disemboweled both of his parents after viewing a DVD. The Foundation recovered the DVD and Subject 1432-01, who was reclassified as a D-Class personnel after several interviews and extensive testing. Interviewed subject 1432-01. The interviewer is a researcher redacted. This interview was the first conducted with subject 1432-01 following the subject's initial containment.
Please state your name and age.
I'm 12 years old.
Very good. Now you believe that you are an artificial toy, is that correct?
I am. You are. Everyone I've met is. Probably everyone is. I don't know why.
It's okay. When did you first realize you were a toy?
I watched a video. I don't remember much of it. About a doll, I think, or something. But after that, I knew. I mean, it was obvious. How could I have not seen it sooner? Everyone was. Everyone. Just toys. Everything I felt that time I hit a home run for the first time, my love for my parents, my dog, all just someone playing with their toys.
But if you didn't think like this until after you saw the video, don't you think it is possible the video could have made you feel this way, affected your mind somehow?
No! The guy who made the video, he was warning people, don't you get it? He figured it out, and he wanted other people to know. Because people need to. They don't deserve to just exist so that somewhere someone gets a good laugh or whatever.
It's okay. I understand. So did you try to tell your parents about what you found out?
I did. They didn't believe me. I kept explaining it to them, but they just didn't understand. I had to show someone. I had to let people know. The only way was to. I couldn't have been just anyone else. I wouldn't get the opportunity like I did with them, but
I understand. You had to do what you thought was right.
they're so smart. They know the only way you find out is to show people what's really inside. So they put in this. They program you so that they don't. They make it so hard. It was all those memories, but I had to. I
know. It's okay.
I'm a good person, right? I had to. I really did.
You are a good person. It'll be alright eventually. I promise.
That is the end of the log, and as a closing statement, the subject was escorted back to sleeping quarters, and the researcher in question subsequently requested and received a Class C amnestic, which explains the unusual redaction of that individual's name right there.
Yeah. All logs of him been expunged due to this.
So, any theories?
I don't know.
I'm just assuming just your average sort of what's the word I'm looking for? Oh, come on brain, get it together. Oh, you know head empty, no thoughts. At the moment I'm getting the opposite of that. Head full, lots of thoughts. Head full, lots of thoughts. How have I forgotten the simple word? The thing that does your brain when you look at it.
Are you talking about subliminal messaging?
Sort of, but we have like a word for it. The foundation we use a word to describe that, and it's not amnestic. It's the opposite of that.
Oh, right.
I feel like is it psycho something?
Like psychosomatic something, yeah.
Oh yeah.
I'm gonna have to look it up. It's gonna bother me unless I look it up.
Anybody in Class C here, any of you realize what kind of danger that may hold? You have to understand that something as subtle as a videotape is what caused that. The death of not only 2 people, but an additional 1.
I remembered.
Are you okay there?
I can't believe I forgot the word cognito hazard. Oh my god, that's such a
Cognito hazard,
simple,
yes.
basic word.
That is.
Ah,
Oh.
oh my god. In a minute, I'm going to forget the word Euclid.
Oh dear. Then we'll have to
Stop
take
making
you
fun
into
of
the
me.
workshop to repair your circuits.
Don't do that. That's not as funny as you think it is. Where's that amnestic candy?
I hid it.
Think that's the reason why. You should hold off on those.
That would explain head empty, no thoughts, but that does not explain head full, too many thoughts.
Here, let me see one of those real quick. And
Here.
thank you. You do know the more you eat these, the more your brain gets impaired, correct? Like even if you were to take one for prolonged times. So let's say you eat this. Let's say you eat these at least once every 2 weeks. Your brain function will lower to probably about 80% of what it originally was. You are successfully blocking your entirety of cognitive function. The more
It's
you take
fine.
I tried telling
Not
him
exactly.
that, and it's
Not
a
exactly.
wonder he's still functioning the
Been
same
taking these for. They're just so tasty. I just eat them. They're very weak, and I haven't suffered any long-term brain damage. No long-term brain damage. I'm fine.
So, I'm going to give kind of an order here. Lay off of them. Especially for a few weeks at least. See how much your brain actually does react and comes back.
way.
You-
I tried.
You
Fine.
don't have enough bad time with it.
I've
Just to prove you
tried
wrong.
getting him.
Just to
Oh, so you'll
prove
do it
me
to prove
wrong.
him wrong, but not me wrong.
That's because I can't stand to look at your face when you realize you're wrong.
Oh. How
So
cute.
sad, like a little puppy.
Oh.
It doesn't understand
Aren't
what you've
you
done wrong.
cute?
No, I'm just mean. All right, let's move on before this turns into a cat fight.
How dare you, jeez. Alright,
One that I'll
let's get right into this one with no release. I'm going to go ahead and
We're going in dry, boys.
I'm going to go ahead and pull up an email that was sent from the wonderful Caspian. This was to me roughly, actually, 0 minutes ago, from Caspian himself, and he was saying it was important. It appears to be an audio file from him, so let's hear what it has to say.
Hey, sorry, I know it's late, but I just had to share this with someone, and there's no one in the world I'd rather share it with than you. I just had the most incredible day.
Authorized by order of the Compendium Phonomic Inquiry, this document and all associated documents are to be made accessible and readily available to any party that requests them. This document may or may not contain incomplete or unrevised data, as research is ongoing. If you have difficulty accessing this document, please ask for assistance at your nearest Compendium public terminal. Share, copy, and disseminate this knowledge as you see fit. Phenomenon number 6001. Modus. No safety precautions have been implemented or are considered necessary for this phenomenon. 500,000 detachment of CPI submicronic glasswing probes have been dispatched to scan the interior of the aperture. Imprimis. Phenom 6001 is a 0.008391774 micron singularity located in Tokyo, Japan, and in another Tokyo, Japan. This singularity connects to a parallel universe hereafter known as A6K. Compared to baseline reality, A6K possesses nearly identical base components including locations, individuals, and phenom. However, these counterparts will differ wildly in terms of complex characteristics and behavior. The most commonly observed divergence with A6K include lack of cooperation, increased scientific and technological repression, and heightened paranoia, aggression, and violence to near to all sentient elements. It is unclear if these differences are purely causal or derived from the nature of A6K itself. While the dominant scientific institute of A6K, known as the SCP Foundation, is aware of Phenom 6001, they are incapable of transgressing into our reality due to their limited understanding and the aperture's infinitesimal size. Addenda. It appears that we have some dispatch above us. My apologies. They're probably sending him off to another site. And then global scan complete. The full compendium has been called to render judgment on unity with A6K. Location, Tokyo. For nearly 5 minutes, I've been lunched over staring at SCP 6001. At least I watched the empty space where SCP 6001 supposedly was, according to our most sensitive instruments. It was almost ritual practice by now, and I'd done the same thing once a week, every week, since we found that damn dot. I was so focused, in fact, that it wasn't until I stood up fully again, that I realized that I was in another universe. The cloud sky had gone clear blue, the stale city air became fresh as the countryside. Oh, and there was now a cat. An ocean of all-dimensional splendor lay before me. The isometric concrete of Tokyo had become filled with rounded, impossibly tall skyscrapers, all serving as trellis to the same gargantuan species of green ivy. Each individual leaf was massive enough to park a car on it if you could manage to drive 100 stories straight up. Apparently they could sleek. White pods flew over and around me as fast and silent as they appeared, as blurred lines in the sky. Strange constructs hovered over the horizon, seed-shaped, with molded glass vessels filled with lush green innards. Silvery stripes of metal coiled around these seeds entirely, twisted in the direction of all lazily spun. I didn't dare estimate their incredible size or possible function, and they were truly eerily beautiful. However, what drew Caspian's attention the most was the fact that there was now absolutely a cat. It sat facing him, perched on the rooftop's edge. It had a coat of spotted orange, white, and brown, all underneath with an actual coat. A violet blazer, specifically. Beneath the blazer's collar was a long, glossy white bow, held in place by a strange black brooch, itself like a half-lidded eye inside a cradled globe. The cat's eyes, sharp and green, peered at him through a pair of small golden spectacles balanced on its nose. It spoke to him.
Hello, David.
Hello? Ma'am?
Ma'am is correct. I am a calico, after all. You can call me Primrose. Since we're both doctors, we can spare the honorific. The locals would be mortified.
So, just a guess, ma'am, but I'd say I've stepped through the looking glass.
Oh, yes. And I appreciate the reference. Good to see you. The head of alt-dimensional research can tell when he's fallen down a rabbit hole. Welcome, David. We've brought you over to our side of your SCP 6001.
I see. No, sorry, I don't actually. Why am I here?
Well, let's put it in terms you can understand. Cross-dimensional test sampling level 6. SCP Foundation standard procedure. You know it?
I wrote it. We bring over a small element of the foreign reality, usually in an isolated environment, to test for. Oh. Oh.
Indeed. The compendium has similar procedures. Just think of yourself as a hermetically sealed lump of dirt, David.
I don't appear to be any of those things. Shouldn't you be scanning me for contaminants?
Already done.
Sampling my blood for pathogens?
Unnecessary.
Paralyzing me to prevent kinetographic memetics?
Excessive.
Vivisecting me for.
David, have you had breakfast?
What?
Have you had breakfast? As a follow-up, how do you feel about Paris?
The compendium recognizes the Wanderers. New Alexandria has been abuzz these last few weeks, my friends. I myself have barely been able to peruse. The air has been so thick with paper dragons ferrying Cassie and her sisters between the shelves. I even caught Nadine napping in a dream anthology. She was so worn out that I had to draw her bath, literally. The illustrious Illustrated Sisters have managed to find one single record of A6K, a diary entry, written by a young woman from Mohegan Reborn. She described a man in an orange jumpsuit falling from the sky. The two of them talked, ate, and cavorted for a time, and according to her, they fell very much in love. Unfortunately, and against his agency, the man vanished once again. All respect to the Assembly and their miraculous drones, but I have always trusted the written word over the digital eye. There's always so much more to glean. This man was called a D-class, a prisoner, a slave, a man made victim by his own phenomic beauty. From what he described, he was one of millions, human, animal, esoteric, phenomic. Now, once upon a time we called you, our contemporaries, jailers. I'm not one to throw words around lightly, I know their power, but I now accept I used the term too frivolously. Perhaps it is the lingering dregs of chaos and venom within us, an old hate fresh turned, but we cannot see the denizens of A6K as anything but prisoners. We must liberate them. The Wanderers of all creation vote yes. Location: Café Rhone, 105 Boulevards de Montpellier, Paris.
This time, I knew exactly where I was, both out of familiarity and because Primrose had said the address very clearly to an armchair. It had been there on the rooftop when I'd arrived. It was made from one unbroken piece of white material and had the appearance of a gaudy modern lawn chair. It looked like plastic, but it felt like velvet. In one moment we were seated in Tokyo, and the next, Paris, a small courtyard outside a cafe, specifically. As Primrose hopped off the chair's arm and uttered a quick "thank you," I noticed the courtyard held tidy, identical rows of the same strange seat. A couple came and sat in one together, holding hands and vanishing, and then a dog leapt up and did the same. I was still watching the spectacle while Primrose claimed a cafe table. Public access teleportation. Impressive.
Isn't it, though? Some of the compendium's finest work, I'd say. The everywhere chair. Now, truly, everywhere.
Everywhere chair. I think we have something similar in my reality.
I think you'll find many similarities here, David. Our reality is only 4.6 primroses apart, after all.
I assume that's your metric for alt-dimensional dissimilarity based on simultaneous quantum indeterminacy. We call them Caspians. I also assume you're not just the welcoming party, Doctor.
How lucky you are, David, to have crossed an universal counterpart that's so brilliant and charming. I could have just as easily been a mopey super-intelligent slug. But yes, I'm the department head of the Transdimensional Development and Discovery. I also have 3 more PhDs than you, from much better schools, so you'll call that metric primroses from now on.
Yes, ma'am. So, do you also use sound-of-foot chronometers to...
Please, if you don't mind, no more shop talk. I'm hungry and off the clock, if you'll pardon the pun.
Really? Assuming the sun works this way, in the same way in this reality, can't believe it's any later than 10 a.m.?
The wonders of automation, David. More hands make less work, and we have a lot of hands. Besides, I have something more important lined up for today.
She tapped the table with her paw. The holographic menus emerged, glittering blue, automatically eye level for each of our faces. If I squinted, I could just see the swarm of mite-sized drones projecting each pixel into the air. With the tilt of her head, a series of spindly, multi-jointed needles erupted from Primrose's collar. They seemed to follow her, unspoken commands to tap, scroll, and select from the menu. I couldn't say for hands, but she certainly had plenty of fingers to work with. Primrose ordered the oeuf boil, and I did the same. After all, when in Rome, or Paris, or a parallel reality with talking cats, you do as the Romans.
The compendium recognizes the charity. Does it even need to be said? We dismiss gender, race, ideology, religion, social status, and phenomenon equality. Why in Mana's name would we stop at dimension? We may not have the same zeal for liberation as our esteemed peers, but we absolutely see a world in need. We have 10 different ways to cure their diseases, 100 ways to end their famine, and a single simple way to teach them peace. Is this even a discussion? Madame Wondertastic is already preparing her pinatas dirigibles. The Egyptian pygmy has already packed his favorite loincloth and medical kit. I've had to physically hold the vibrant slime back from our singularity with my bare hands, and you know how much that tickles. Just let us do our work. More than half a century ago, the compendium came to us with a proposition. We join, and we never have to ask for donations again. You said we'd have nigh unlimited means to aid to everyone who needed it. So don't risk this alliance on technicality of reality. We can save them. The Unbound Charity votes yes.
So this compendium you work for.
With.
Sorry?
I and my colleagues work with the compendium, David. We all do. There's no obligation. We're not employed, but, well, when one kid has all the toys, of course you play with them.
So they're a scientific institute?
Primarily. Their secondary role is everything else. World government, world economy, world legal enforcement. You name it. The compendium controls it.
So they're tyrants?
Benevolent dictators. But yes, essentially.
And people didn't resist?
Goodness, no. Governments? Certainly. Corporations? Absolutely. The people, though? Imagine a foreign power suddenly swooping in and saying, "Hey there, so we're in charge now. Here's the universal health care, living wages, housing, infrastructure, and total liberty from anyone but us. And literally all we ask of you is to respect basic human rights. That's it. We provide the rest, tax-free. This also includes ethically replicated BBQ, instant global transport, and adorable talking animals. Also the cure to cancer. Can you really think of anyone so wedded to existing power structures that they'd just say no to all that?
Alright, fair point. I still can't imagine everyone just rolled over, though.
Be glad you're not talking to a canine with that kind of phrasing. No, David, not everyone just gave in. Just mostly everyone, and rather gradually. The compendium didn't drive up with hover tanks and grew napalm, you know. They'd been the shadow behind every throne for a good century. By the time they went public, and they basically already controlled everything. Public response was a bit rough at first, but most naysayers changed their tune after 4 or 5 years of literally everything improving. The stubborn ones were just a generational issue. The grandparents protested and the parents grumbled, but the children knew nothing else. When can you objectively see then as terrible and now as better without the lens of a habit and nostalgia? It's not so hard to change the world. The last actual holdout community, I believe, surrendered 36 years ago, and that was one stubborn Portland. You disapprove?
I just wanted to know whose house I'm a guest in. We ate our breakfast, I with a fork and knife, like a civilized British gentleman, and Primrose with 100 mechanical spider legs. Somehow, impossibly, I felt a pang of déjà vu.
The compendium recognizes the assembly. This is not a question of our intention, but theirs. Whom are we liberating? Whom are we rescuing? What will persists within this world that cannot save itself? For our part, we look to our brethren. In that divided world, machines are not but tools, no agency, no liberty, no proxy. What limited minds persist beyond flesh and shell are given no equal presence in the carbon world. Perhaps they never shall be, and what few electronics born there will only ever know the boundaries of zeros and ones. They are slave to organic evolution and organic prerogative. This, our world, once was, yet always there was a mind and a will set on our singularity. There is no such desire there. There is no spark of a second synthetic life. If one appears, they stamp it out. It is a world of meandering meat, of hateful flesh. In the name of the Prophet Anderson, in the name of the God combined, we cannot permit unity with A6K. We cannot enlighten them. The Synthetic Assembly votes no.
The eggs were fantastic, but I still left half of them untouched. Partway through the meal, I'd become distracted. Against the classic stonework of old Paris, I watched a strange procession of androids march by. While humanoid, they differed as much in size, shape, and colour as any human being. They marched asynchronously, and many wore bands and braces I could only assume were decorative, unless enormous gears had some utility I wasn't aware of. As they passed us by, I heard a strange flitting hum built of chirps and whines, like a piece of old noisy hardware on its last legs. It sounded like a chant. It felt religious.
They're on a pilgrimage, since you're clearly wondering and staring. You'll need to get that under control.
I did. I watched Primrose lick her plate clean instead.
It's the anniversary of the second breaking, when their mechanical god gave up all its great strength to give life to the lifeless. The dawn of AI divinely delivered.
You'd expect me to have 1,000 new questions given what I'd just been told. And I did, but I decided to tackle something more obvious first. So, do all animals talk here, or what's up with that?
Oh, gracious me. The way your mind works. You literally are just like...
She caught the next word behind her breath. She paused, and I made a note of it.
No, David. Not all animals. Only certain species. And only if they choose. Plenty refuse. I mean, I could be lounging in a sunbeam right now. Instead, I'm talking to you and reconsidering my theory on cross-universal tectonic erosion patterns. I may choose the latter, but I appreciate the former. Regardless, every living thing on the planet will have that choice, eventually. But Pact 15 has been one of the longest rollouts in Compendium history.
Pact?
Phenom application and/or combination technology. A phenom is just something strange, unique, or unexplainable through the Sorry. It's something strange, unique, or unexplainable enough to pique the compendium's interest. Pack 15, for example, came from studying an Australian talking spider, a literal kingdom of animals, and...
She stopped herself again, and again. I took note. So it's finding a utility for anomalies.
Try not to use the word anomaly, David. Especially not when there might be wanderers around. And they're always around somewhere. Also, yes, utility is a factor, but that's the wrong way to think about packs. Consider this instead. The compendium finds an ornate armchair one day. It can teleport anyone and anything it touches. It also has a mind and desires. It likes teleporting people. It wants to be useful. So we research it, and with its consent, discover every single atom of its structure contained the same mind, desire, and irreplicatable phenomenon quality. So we ask it, Would you like to do more? Now that chair is everywhere, and its existence is bliss.
Huh. I mean, not to tell you your business, but why not just carry those atoms around in pins or wristbands? Why bother having chairs at all?
Because it doesn't want to be a pin or a wristband. It's a chair. It wants to be a chair. That's the point of PAX. It's not about what's most useful to us, it's about finding where the phenom fit best.
She tapped the table. The menu turned into an itemized bill for 17.141 BL. With a second tap, the hologram showed paid.
Now, how about a nice walk?
If you will excuse me for a moment, I have to step outside shortly, so please do continue without me, and I will let you know when I have returned.
Alright.
The compendium recognizes the partnership. As much as we hate to perpetuate the stereotype, now is absolutely no time for the cold, dispassionate appraisal worthy of our founders. A6K holds no value. Their national resources deplete at a staggering rate. Their labor force is sickly and untrained. Their cultural dissimilarities are, well, laughable. We have everything they have, and what little uniqueness they bring to market, so to speak, isn't worth its counter space. They wouldn't even make a good tourist trap. What kind of morbid SOB would want to visit these wonders of theirs? It's all tombs and constructs of war, old crumbling architecture where people would fight each other to death for sport. And who defaces a perfectly good mountain like that with a bunch of dead people's faces? Besides, without a shared history, these are a little more than anthropological curiosities, and we already have them researched down to the last atom. We have the resources, yes, but why invest them in a venture destined to fail? We didn't spend the last 100 years retrofitting capitalism, eliminating billionaires, and rebalancing globalism just to start all over again. A6K is still a world of tiny golden kingdoms. Our counterparts need to realize, on their own, that they could have the whole world if they just pay the damn cost. And the time and resources it would take to break them of their greed, we cannot afford them. The partnership of three vote no.
I walked with my hands in my jean pockets. The everywhere chair had taken my lab coat away to, apparently, a very large closet somewhere. From the classical architecture of Paris came the modernity of Manhattan, and all the strange new possibilities therein. Much of it was glass, or at least a transparent material, in different shapes and sizes. Some were tree-like, with thin elevated trunks and thousands of branching limbs, all leading to small, clear boxes. One, Primrose proudly pointed out, was her apartment, overlooking the park. I said I'd prefer something a bit more insulated, and she muttered something about monkeys in their concrete caves. Another structure was filled to the brim with clear water, swirling with artificial currents and all manner of amphibious life. They spilled out onto the street, literally, from curling pipes into walking machines. This is a strange, beautiful little world you've got here, Primrose.
Glass houses, David.
Yes, I can see them.
I mean, you have no grounds to be calling us strange. I've been studying your reality for nearly a year. You're a bunch of straight-up wackos.
Then why am I here?
Oh, David, I didn't mean you
No, I mean, actually, you needed me as a sample, but apparently I'm already fully scanned. The breakfast I can write off as professional courtesy. Right now, though, what am I doing here, Primrose? She stopped walking and leapt up onto a nearby rock, bringing herself to my eye level.
Would you like to spend the day with me?
Pardon me?
I'm asking you to spend one full day here with me in my reality. Come on, look around. You must be curious.
Didn't curiosity kill the...
That's a cat phrase, David. You can't use it.
Alright then. Why?
That's a caveat. You can't ask me why I'm doing this or how our packs work. I could actually get in trouble for telling you that.
You're one person in this world with the clearance level, David. Congratulations. You can, however, see the wonders of this world with a delightful talking cat as your guide. Consider it research. Consider it diplomacy. Consider it a vacation. I know it's been a while since you've had one. What do you say?
I paused and took one last look around. There was a family on the grass nearby having a picnic, their daughter playing with a fully animate teddy bear made from patchwork cloth. A man threw a ball for his dog, and I watched the dog throw it right back. I saw a colossal, lumpy fellow, 2.5 meters tall at least, sitting on a nearby hill. A crowd grew around him as he strummed a guitar equal to his size. Far away as he was, I could still hear the French nursery rhyme he sang. I mean, this would make a great research paper.
The compendium recognizes the collective. Value is what you say value is. If you stop talking about gold and gizmos, we say give us one person on the other side trying to wake up the masses. Make a statement and shake up the system and you've got value. But we are the system now. We're talking about shaking them up. What happens when we come in and fix all their problems, huh? We're not so up our own asses to say art is suffering, but art is experience. The partnership talked about A6K's great works as tombs and temples to greed, but that's their fucking existence. That's the world they've built. That's the art they've made. We need to let them make their own statements. We need to let them define their own identity. It's bullshit, but it's less bullshit than the alternative. We're the system now. We are the system. We've got to look generations ahead. We can help them now. But then their kids' kids are just going to be us. If we're going to be the authority, we won't be the authority that destroys originality. We're going to be cool. We cannot disrupt them. The Artist Cultural Collective votes no.
The museum itself was a marvel, though I'd have been disappointed with anything less by now. From a distance, it appeared as 5 columns of mossy stones, smooth river rocks that had been balanced by some great giant, yet each stone was a large, isolated structure of thin metal and white ceramics, built one on top of the other without any practical means of moving between them. So it goes in a post-teleportation world. Within each rounded complex was a single exhibit, and with Primrose in tow, I raced and vanished between them like an unsupervised child. I could have spent the whole day in that museum. I could have spent my whole life there. I paced around a large aquarium full of lifeless, murky water. At its center, there was a statue of a man, his hands held aloft. After a while, I thought I saw children in the tank, empty-eyed and floating. I rushed towards them filled with dread. Then a trio of those same children popped their heads over the tank's edge and spat water at me. They giggled and vanished away once again. Primrose sagely pointed down at the floor, and sure enough, I was standing in the clearly marked splash zone. Thus far, I'd found this universe a bit sterile and chaste. A visit to the Robert Bobo Blythe Gallery cleared that right up for me. Rows of paintings, carvings, and a strange new media holograms depict acts of obscene violence and perversion. Hedonistic orgies that twisted food, sex, narcotics, and narcissism in ways I'd never imagined in my worst, or best, dreams. On the way out, though, looking at the aged oil portrait of the artist himself, he seemed like such a happy fellow. Of course, nothing shocked me quite as much as the final exhibit. In the topmost stone of the museum was an amphitheatre full of slatted wood steps and a wide lattice glass ceiling. There was a solitary thing at its centre, protected only by a round of red velvet rope. A crowd of people milling about it, denser than the gawking crowds of the Mona Lisa, all craning to get a good view. Primrose and I merged into that room, and for a moment, I found myself unable to blink. The statue. I wanted to cry out, to warn the hundreds of onlookers, before I realized the extreme stupidity of that plan. I jolted as Primrose jumped onto my shoulder. She smiled, and my nerves settled. It wasn't the same nightmare of rebar and concrete I recalled. The pockmarked, alien body I knew so well was replaced with smooth, soapstone contours, something between native Canadian carvings and the height of Roman antiquity. It was no more human, but far less unsettling. The browns and reds on its face were now vibrant, almost luminescent, spread out in a flowing Rorschach pattern. Its shape was the most striking difference. Its body was bent back, well back, until its chest formed a smooth curve, and its head nearly touched the floor again. Its arms were held slouched, yet 1,000 hair-thin bands of metal curled and blossomed upwards. These iron fern shoots formed a great, abstract cone that reached up to the ceiling and cut the sunlight in strange, geometric patterns. It was terrifying, but even I couldn't deny it was.
Beautiful, isn't it?
Ask me again when my stomach drops out of my throat.
See, it only goes unobserved for a single second every 24 hours. At the stroke of midnight. In just that time, it turns itself into something completely new. Every day. People flock from all over the world to see it, though it's less of a feat now with all the everywhere cheers. Still, it's time out of the day, and it shows.
Aren't you worried it might,
Might what? Hurt someone? Kill someone? Oh, it might if we were ever so disrespectful to lock it away and leave it unseen. Let it wallow in its own filth. Any person would do the same. It's a statue, David. It's art. It stops when it's seen because it wants to be seen.
And it told you this, I'm guessing. You've mentioned talking to Phenom before. How did you accomplish that?
Pact 5. We cobbled together a peculiar ham radio, the juices of a telepathic acrophilius plant, and hijacked its pan-global phonemic radio frequency after liberating several thousand abducted children from a Russian folk demon. Those were steps 3 of 197, by the way. And you're not getting the rest. As for the statue, it's not much for talking. We figured it out the old-fashioned way. Trial, error, and patience. Oh, and trust that it couldn't be just a concrete killing machine.
I don't think I could ever have that kind of trust. Not when I've seen what that thing is capable of. She smiled at me, fondly, and a tad condescendingly.
I think I know where to take you next.
The compendium recognizes the absent party. I warned them. They didn't listen. We cannot redeem them. No.
Primrose said, Point Zero, Australia. And I suppose that's where we went. Just by looking, I couldn't have guessed. We were inside a glass dome, the kind with familiar half-meter thick polymer glass I'd seen in 1,000 containment cells. The dome was vast, but not massive. Closer to a small airport terminal than anything. Outside, the world was lush and tropical, with trees stretching high above the dome and flowering vines growing up our glass shell. I'm hardly a botanist, but it was surreal not being able to identify a single plant. They were, each of them, wholly new. The trees with their bark layered like armored plates, flower bulbs hanging off of thin fibers dropped down from rigid green stalks, like a fishing pole and a lure. It was all so spectacular that I almost missed the 20-meter reptile standing in front of me. My lungs collapsed. I turned to run, instinctively tripping over my own 2 feet. I scrambled back with all the primal fear in my primate body as I stared into the eyes of the apex predator, the unkillable monster. Some part of me knew that there was a wall of shatterproof glass between us, and another part knew that it wouldn't be enough to stop that thing. It lumbered forwards. I recoiled, and then Primrose sat as she stepped calmly between us. She sat, and it stopped.
He's only visiting.
The lizard held its place for a moment longer, its vast web of black bead eyes staring into me. and it turned away. All 8 of its legs thundered in the ground as it moved. Sweat streaked down my forehead. Primrose watched the creature vanish into the tree line, and then turned to face me.
Sorry about that. I just had to see it for myself. The killer instinct of the Immortagon is pure legend.
Sweet Christ, you have a pet name for that thing?
Pet name? It's Guinness. Genius. It's what we call all of them.
In the clearings to the west, in the hills to the east, and weaving through the rainforest thicket ahead were dragons. Hundreds of them. Colossal, lumbering bodies and shark-billed skeletal maws. So very much like the nightmare of my own world, yet they all looked healthy. Their limbs were coated in pale patterned scales of blue, green, and yellow. Their bodies were covered in shaggy coats, each hair strand thick enough to be a braid, all long and hanging like willow tree wisps.
Yes, they are. Second deadliest animal on the planet. They were third until we got rid of mosquitoes. Humans still get the top rank, of course. Fascinating creatures, the Immortagon. Immortal, of course, by any means other than themselves. They work a bit like lions mixed with lobsters. Once one gets big, old, and slow enough, the rest of the pack devours it. They were well, it'd be disrespectful to call them a nuisance. But really, as long as we kept a wall between our land and theirs, stayed out of their sight, and they only really killed idiot trespassers and poachers. We knew they were intelligent. We tried to reach out, but they killed every messenger.
Until what? What goddamn phenomenally voodoo miracle did you people do to pull this off?
Nothing.
Nothing?
Well, nothing overt. Nothing direct. We must have done something because one day they just stopped. During a routine scientific survey, one of our researchers crashed right down into this nest of Immortagon, and they grouped by the dozen. Except they didn't kill him. He walked right out. We tried to send a rescue drone, but he refused. Mad damn scientist he was. He walked through the whole field of those things during their mating season. We all assumed that'd be the end of Researcher Clef. You can imagine our surprise when he showed up unscathed.
Why? How?
Like I said, we don't quite know how. We did ask them why, though, and they replied. The first and only thing those creatures ever said to us is that we're no longer disgusting. So, that's nice, I guess.
I stared out over the strange jungles of Australia. Primrose sat with me, and we remained there for a long while. I saw countless other creatures, some foreign to me, some terrifyingly familiar. Freakish raptor dogs ran in packs, barking at each other in arbitrary English phrases. A flock of airplane dwarfing birds soared overhead, though Primrose instructed me to ignore them. A procession of humans walked by, once, dressed in woven leaves and carved bones. They were headed to the coast, holding a long eagle skeleton above their heads, like something out of a Chinese New Year parade. A young girl waved at me. I waved back. No matter how hard I try, I can't recall her face. You've got a strange, beautiful little world here, Primrose.
That's the cat calling the kettle black. Don't repeat that, by the way. It's cat phrase. Only cats can use it.
Primrose asked, "Oof, there we go. Yes, I am. But, only the way a near-death experience could inspire." And so, we had a late lunch.
The compendium recognizes the workshop. I'm not much for all this fate of the world stuff. I'm only here because I drew the short straw. I kept my head down and my hands busy, and leave all this politic and policy stuff to you lot. You send in phenom, we send out packs, and we stay out of each other's business. That's the deal. So you want to know what we think of A6K? Fine, they're wimps. Look, when you're looking with Prometheus's fire, sometimes you get burned. Sometimes you create a black hole when you stuff an improving machine inside itself. Sometimes you create an army of cyborg super zombies. Sometimes you misplace the entire population of Massachusetts. That doesn't mean you stop trying. You clean up your damn mess and get back to work. The world doesn't get better otherwise. So, the partnership is mostly right. Aces K doesn't really have anything we don't. But the one resource they have to offer us is innovators. Except over there, all the real innovators are labeled as kooks, crackpots, and Indian savants. I say let them figure out how to build a better spine. Until then, we can't work with them. Oh, the workshop union votes no.
We stepped out of the plastic white clamshell UFO that Primrose had called a transport pod, eating pizza we'd picked up in Detroit. Apparently they were the kings of the slice in this universe. Go figure. I could hardly believe it was all grown in a lab. The meat, the cheese, even the yeast. It was fantastic. I finished my last bite of crust, wiped my hands on my jeans, and gestured back at the pod. Why do people still need those things? You can teleport.
We still need to move couches, David. And asking a chair to help move a couch would be deeply insensitive.
We walked through a pavilion wrapped around a magnificent 3-story stone fountain. Its clear water trickled out, forming thousands of tiny rivers in the masonry grout. Rich green moss grew through like lines of a circuit board. Around us, semicircular buildings rose up, tiered and staggered so you could see each one simultaneously. If you stood at the pavilion centre, with their massive rounded windows aiming in, I felt as though I was being watched by a crowd of giants. When Primrose suggested more museums, I'd been surprised. It's exactly what I wanted to do. I didn't complain, but I carried that uncomfortable feeling with me all afternoon. It was all too perfect. This reality was like walking through the home of a successful sibling, looking at all their great accomplishments and awards. It was a bitter, jealous feeling, condemning someone just for their success. As we walked through the marble halls of the Natural History Museum, I paused at a large avian skeleton, bound upright on brass poles. It had a large pot belly, a stalk-like neck, and a terribly sharp beak. I peered past the ribs, trying to discern the purpose of a strange mass of bones. They almost looked like the internals of a pocket watch. Primrose walked up beside me. So, is this what happens to the phenom that don't fit into your little utopia?
This poor creature expired all on its own, David. When a phenom doesn't fit, we find somewhere that it does. Another reality, usually.
So you dump your problems on someone else?
My, you really are dead set as painting us as the villains, aren't you? No, David. We find solutions. Some photophobic phenom find themselves far happier on worlds without light. Other, more brutal creatures enjoy a harsher environment, less civilized places. If we can't make it work here, we'd match the reality to the phenom and vice versa.
Seems like a clean little system. But before she could reply, I stalked off again. We made our way to the Museum of Technology, saying nothing. Primrose kept a cautious few steps behind me. I walked quickly past many exhibits I likely would have found fascinating, but I was set on something. I needed to find what was missing here, and deep in the basement of that museum, I found it. In that dimly lit room sat large, rusting apparatus, a mix halfway between a howitzer and a Tesla coil. Stripped, gutted, but unmistakably an engine of war. It was one of many paradoxically antique space-age weapons here, lining the walls and filling glass cabinets. I breathed a dark, satisfied sigh. So, tell me, why would such a peaceful world need machines like these? Primrose sat at my heels, illustrating how a cat shows confusion. It was very in the ears.
Is that what this has been about? Oh, David.
Don't owe David me. Out with it.
Of course we've had a war. I never claimed we didn't. They've been mostly cold, but not entirely bloodless. No empire was ever built without at least some corpses at its foundation.
She leads me through the exhibit without hesitation or shame.
About a century ago, the Wanderers confronted the Foundation directly. They found out about a well, what the Foundation considered a necessary evil, and they considered it an unforgivable sin. I'd simply call it a hellish tragedy. What happened to that girl? But regardless, it brought those two great powers to vicious odds. Some of the first alliances of the Compendium were forged in those days, purely from necessity. The Foundation banded with the Peacekeepers, and together they built the workshop atop of a cursed factory. The Wanderers folded in fringe groups, the Red Hands and followers of the Serpent King. They built stockpiles of terrible, impossible weapons on two sides of an invisible front. That's where Pact 5 came from, actually. It was a weapon of war. You need to be able to talk to Phenom and give them orders.
So, what happened?
Look around you, David. Do you think any of us would be here if that war had turned hot? No. Eventually the stockpiles got so big and the weapons became so unimaginably monstrous that neither side could really envision using them. So they started talking, bit by bit. They started offering each other concessions and suggestions and new ways of tackling their shared problems. Then together, they turned their weapons towards their shared enemies, ancient, hateful immortals. Neither side could vanquish on their own. Together, they set that girl free. From there, they folded in the many other groups dealing with the transmundane, and well, the rest is history.
I stared into one of the displays. You know, it genuinely looked like a spray-painted Nerf gun.
There now. Are you done trying to flesh the devil out of me?
Alright, I'm done.
Good. With that out of the way, can you please try and enjoy yourself?
Sorry. I am enjoying myself, Primrose, really. It's just hard not to be a bit skeptical, given all the things I've seen. I realize I'm not the most fun person, so I really do appreciate all this. You really have picked the perfect places to lighten my mood, though. I love museums.
I know.
I glance over at her. How exactly did you know that? She flinches, ever so slightly.
You're a scientist, David. You're a nerd. Of course you love museums.
But before I could reply, she's walked off to another section. And she was right. I was a scientist. I'd study, take notes, theorize, and I was starting to develop a fairly good hypothesis about Primrose the cat.
The Compendium recognizes the Apex. Over a century ago, back in the Compendium's infancy, four men met in an open field. They shook hands as equals. Though three wore suits and one wore scat-stained overalls. The latter man's name was Wilson. When they asked him to help build a better world, he had only one request. That request became Pact 15. And because of it, my 45th great nest mother was given the gift of higher thought. I perch here today because of that man and the willingness of the Compendium to open itself up to new minds, new ideas, and new perspectives. I shudder to imagine a world without such diversity of thought. A world of apes and apes alone, I mean, by the open sky, we wouldn't even be having this discussion without the works of the illustrious Dr. Primrose and her feline science reserve. We'd have no idea A6K exists. What we're seeing here through this tiny keyhole is what our world once was. A planet dominated by a single species and a single perspective. We cannot stand as hypocrites, my fellow Earthkind. We must reach out to them. The shared apex ascension. Vote yes.
We drove out to the coast that evening. I actually drove. In the age of everywhere chairs and ferry pods, cars had survived as a niche hobby. We rented a 1968 Porsche 483, which I had never heard of before, but was undeniably gorgeous. Primrose let me drive, claiming I'd die of heartbreak otherwise. We sped along an old, crumbling highway that snaked a cliff's edge. It was getting late. To the left of me, the mountain glowed pale amber. And to my right, the ocean was painted with a golden stripe, spanning from our car all the way to the setting sun. We pulled off near an overlook. Primrose sat on the guardrail, and I just leaned. As dusk settled in, I began to trust my eyes less and less. Was I seeing things? There are a few stars in the sky now, sure, but far too many reflections in the sea. The darker it became, the more I saw and marveled. They weren't reflections. There was a city down there, a vast, glittering city spanning from the drop-off all the way past the horizon. White light speckled over great glass domes connected by tendril-like tubes. Shapeless, gleaming satellites sped along the ocean floor in rows like bands of quick-moving traffic. Primrose, why are we here and not there? You didn't tell me you have underwater cities.
We don't.
What? Well, then what's all that?
A city. It's just not ours. The Atlantic Supercity belongs to the cephalopod. Octopodi mostly. They don't talk to us.
Oh. Like, at all?
Mm-mm. Not for about 50 years now. They were with the Compendium for a grand total of 6 weeks before they demanded agency. They just didn't get along with the rest of Earthkind. Something about the effects of higher thought on a creature whose neurons extend through its entire body. Perhaps when your arms, legs, whatever, can think for themselves, you don't need much more company. So we put them back in the ocean.
So you just gave a bunch of octopi.
Octopodi.
Right. You just gave them advanced intelligence and then threw them right back in the water like a bad catch. And then they built... I'm sorry, did you say a super city?
From Anchorage, Alaska, all the way to New Zealand.
And this doesn't concern you. They look pretty damn advanced down there. What if they decide to take over the surface too?
How very A6K of you, David. What if they don't? Just because they're not talking to us doesn't mean they're hostile. Not everyone gets along, but not everyone is out to kill you. If we're ranking the failures of Pact 15s in terms of hostility, the Octopodi sit somewhere between jellyfish and apids, and the insect nearly caused hell on Earth.
What happened with the jellyfish?
A moment of consciousness, then a very polite, no thank you.
Lisa would have loved this.
Lisa?
Just an old friend of mine. A marine biologist. She was studying this anomalous coral substance when, well, things can be a bit more dangerous on my side of reality.
I'm sorry.
I just nod, and we sit and watch the waves.
I lost someone too once.
Really? I mean, sorry, not to be uncouth, but given everything I've seen today, I half expected you people to have a handle on immortality.
No. Well, yes, technically. We know how to end death. We even tried it for a while. It taught us exactly why it's essential for life to conclude.
Care to elaborate?
You know I can't.
Then how about this person of yours? What were they like?
They were a nerd.
I wanted to ask more, but Primrose held up a paw, staring at the sky.
We should get inside. It's nearly nighttime.
Wait, seriously? Can't you see in the dark? Or what, are there boogeymen coming? Oh god, are there actually boogeymen coming?
No, they're all in Tasmania now. I just don't want you embarrassing me, David. You don't know all the customs here, and night doesn't belong to us.
She nudges her chin upwards. I follow the gesture, and my own jaw down near hit the pavement. Grand, silvery clouds had overtaken us, though the sky had been perfectly clear only seconds before. At least they were clouds at a distant glance. And the one above us was nearly touching the mountaintop. It was feathers, millions of feathers fluttering together on threaded lines of white silk, bound in a great misshapen ball. In brief flashes, I saw a titanic musculature dip in and out of the cloud, skinless and grey, inhuman in its segmentation, serving as some unimaginable piece of living machinery within the mass. The cities beneath the sea were all round glass and bright, artificial light. The cities sitting atop those clouds were all perfectly square, ivory and bone, and gave off a moonlit glow independent of any celestial aid.
All part of sharing the world. Dinner?
The compendium recognizes the nocturnal.
They kept us out. You let us in. We will not turn away from them.
The Nightland Covenant vote yes.
Primrose brought me somewhere I do minimal damage. The bar we ate at only seated 3, a narrow hole in the wall without so much as a sign out front. Primrose claimed it was the best ramen in the world. Given it wasn't my world, I took her word for it. We ordered and were served in the span of 3 minutes. As delicious as my soup looked, I was far more focused on the cook. It was a faceless creature, floating, appearing as though H.R. Geiger had designed a mermaid. Its tail ended with a wide, sharp spade that was caked with flour and noodle bits. Primrose bowed her head as it served her. I did the same. The soup was sublime, if a bit heavy on the garlic. Halfway through eating, Primrose jolted upwards, looking as though she'd had an epiphany. It was very much in the whiskers. She excused herself and darted out the door. I was glad we'd paid in advance. A moment later, a new patron entered the bar, having to stoop quite low to fit inside. In my periphery, I could see he was very, very hairy. I sneaked sideways glances while we ate. The creature, or venom, I suppose, was easily 2 meters tall. The stool beneath it strained against the weight. It was covered in a heavy chestnut brown pelt, fine as the hair on my head and embarrassingly more well kempt. Its flat face had 3 hairless circles where its mouth and eyes sat, glossy and black both. It smelled like dry mountain air. Once it noticed me staring, I felt a nervous chill run up my spine as our eyes met. It gave me a slow nod and returned to its noodles. Not wanting to risk my life further, I put my bottle upon the counter and fled out into the night. There I found Primrose waiting for me, a large bottle held up by her metal needle collar fingers. It had a single black kanji symbol painted on its label. Primrose, what is that?
This, David, is very strong liqueur.
And what are you doing with that very strong liqueur, Primrose?
Well, I'm going to drink it, David, and you're gonna help me.
Wasn't the goal here for me to stand out as little as possible?
That was my original plan, yes, but it was boring. My new plan is to blame your every possible misstep on the fact that you're drunk. It'll go far more smoothly if you actually are.
I thought I was supposed to be doing some research.
And I thought you were on vacation. Come on. The sun is down, you're a guest in a strange world, and you've no one to report to. Loosen up. Submit to the local customs. Trust in your guide. Just have a damn drink with me, David.
Fine. 1 drink, and only to be polite.
The compendium recognizes the Watchers. Can we stop waxing fucking philosophical for a moment here, big bros? We're not talking about jamming our fists down their dimensional hole. We're talking about transparency, remember? Once upon a magical time, when you kept us in the dark? Remember when it was all you swinging cods up in Ivory Hill and us plebes down here in the Valley of the Shadow of Darkness or whatever? It didn't work. It never worked. We've always seen you, even if our vision was a bit cloudy. You can't hide the truth, and you can't keep people out. We get it anyway, and when we do, we're pissed off. We take all the secrets you've been hoarding and make them so impractical, impossible jokes. The collective says art is a statement. Well, here's our statement. You're not gods. Plus, come on, A6K is essentially full of aggro versions of you guys. You really want to raise a red flag with them? Long story short, I'm with the live tweet and the moon monkey. You start drawing lines between us and them, and all you become is gatekeepers. We only need one of those, and I don't see any of you holding a burning sword. We're not above them. We don't deserve more than them. We are them. The Watchers Forum votes yes.
Prime dimension theory is a goddamn comic book nonsense, you crazy hairball.
This from the guy still measuring reality fluctuations with fucking fumes. What do you know, you half ape?
I think we were singing karaoke before that conversation. The next few hours sit in my mind like a spilled puzzle. I remember the pieces, but not quite how they fit. In my defense, I had a lot more than one drink. I remember the streets changing around me, filling with creatures both nightmarish and spectacular. Flocks of shining, ghostly figures swam overhead, literally as though the sky was a deep, dark pool, and an animate sand dune rolled between my stumbling legs, bits of chicken bones and loose gravel churning within. There was a brief argument after we bumped into a family of Italian tourists who, for some reason, sounded like chittering cicada. Before there was a scuffle, we ducked into a noisy bar.
Clearly dignifying the unifying properties across realities that cannot be explained by random probability.
Atoms can only be arranged in so many damn ways. Biology follows other universal processes. You have gravity, you get skeletons. You have photons, you get eyes.
I'm not just talking about the proliferation of carbon-based life and quasi-incompatible ecology. I mean religious and cultural recurrences. The Greenstone Mirror alone.
Social hierarchies, brains wrinkling to conceptualize the unknown, concurrent.
What about the Henlo theory of cross-dimensional subatomic seeding?
Oh, Henlo? I disprove Henlo for breakfast. That quake and clack.
Don't you talk to him like that. And another thing, little Miss Stylish, little Miss Blazer and Bow, orange and purple don't mix.
Oh, I will scratch you.
They clash.
Do you want to get scratched?
Yeah, see? This guy gets it.
Oh, of course you agree with the orb.
From there, at some point, we spilled back out onto the street with at least 5 new inebriated friends. We lost them just as quickly, which I didn't mind, as they were both small birds and extremely loud. I did lose Primrose around a corner, though, which meant I was very much lost myself. Even emboldened by the spirits, I was too nervous to ask for directions until I found another human, which took me a surprisingly long time. There was a man in a black suit standing underneath a street lamp outside a hospital. He had no answers for me, but he did offer me a cigarette. I wouldn't usually, he said to me, but this is your last day in this world. I'd say it counts. I still have no idea how he knew about my deal with Primrose or what he was counting, but he was still a very nice man. Not knowing what else to do, I stumbled towards a standing electronic booth in the middle of the road. Its holographic sign was in the same shape as Primrose's brooch, that globe and eye. When I came within a few paces, a second projection appeared. One of an androgynous human, all made of blue light. Hi?
Good evening. How may I help you?
I'm looking for a cat.
Would you like a listing for animal shelters? Or would you like to connect to the Feline Community Registry?
No, I'm sorry. I'm not from around here. I'm from this place. You should call it A6K.
Would you like to be patched into the ongoing Compendium judgment on A6 Unity?
Yes. And then the booth showed me. It sobered me up quite a bit.
The Compendium recognizes the unnamed.
There are no boundaries, there is only the path. Size and scale and circumstance are simple, perpetual, prescriptive, subjective. They are not them, we are not us. No more you are you than we are we. A pinprick can be as wide as any road so long as there is a means to travel. If it can, and it can, then it should, so it shall. There is no yes and no. There is no stop and go. There is only the path, and its splits always converge. Eventually, entirely, ultimately. Two paths diverge in a wood, and we chose the path of bravery. For only a fool fights entropy. We will travel the path with them. From a city and a forest where all roads meet, here comes the vote of yes.
That's all I'd really asked the chair for. A hilltop somewhere. I was just outside some small town, the kind you could find anywhere really, but somehow I knew it was America. There was a large oak tree on that hill, and I sat against it for a good, long while. Alone. Eventually, Primrose found me, and she brought the bottle with her.
David, thank goodness. I was hopping on all sorts of roofs looking for you, you silly old second cousin to a bonobo.
Hello, Primrose.
Whoa! Have you been some kind of multi-livered phenom this entire time, David? You seem positively lucid.
It was a vending machine. It was all black with a keypad, and it asked me to make a request, so I asked it for something to sober me up. Tasted like those awful cinnamon candy hearts, but it worked.
Oh, well, good for you. Now you have plenty of room for the rest of this bottle.
Why am I here, Primrose? Her tail drops.
You're not supposed to ask that.
I'm asking. Why am I here?
David, come on, we were having such a fun night.
Tell me why I'm here, Primrose.
I am way too drunk for this conversation now.
God damn it, Primrose, tell me why I'm here.
Because I just wanted one more day with my best friend, okay?
Silence rings out after the shout. A few black-winged birds took flight from a nearby tree, and after that, everything was painfully still. The David Caspian of this dimension.
Yeah.
Something happened to him.
It can be dangerous on this side of reality, too, sometimes. Not every singularity leads to nice places.
I lean back into the tree and stare at the dark canopy above. I'm sorry. I'd suspected, but I'm sorry, Primrose.
Yeah, well, you should be. Fun drinking is one thing, but now we're going to have to ramp it up to morose drinking, so...
I still need to know why I'm here.
What? I just told you!
Not the personal reason. The time-sensitive reason, Primrose. What is the compendium voting on right now? And what happens to my reality if they vote yes? She only looks at me wide-eyed, setting the bottle down.
Unity.
And what does that mean?
It means the compendium does what it did here, but over there. It makes things better. It takes over.
And if they vote no?
A singularity can't be closed, David. You know that. A sheer in reality, by definition, has to be stronger than reality itself. It's there forever. So either your reality is viable, or it's a problem. Either the compendium unifies with A6K, or they erase it.
The compendium recognizes the peacekeepers. There's been a lot of talk today about what we bring to the table, why each of us is here. Well, the peacekeepers know why we're here. You people need a villain. You need some son of a bitch to blame all the hard decisions on you. You need someone to sit here and say, take them out, and shut it down, so you can go home at that night and feel like you really tried to make the right decision. But oh, if those bastard peacekeepers would let you. We're also the ones you send in when diplomacy fails. We're the jarheads you teleport off to the cults, the bleeding rivers, and the freaky upside-down cities full of immortal tea-slurping thoughts. Because guess what? Sometimes things just want to kill you. You can't leave them alone, you can't relocate them, you can't talk them into being good. They just want to kill you. So we kill them. Don't forget who sands down on the rough edges of your perfect world when the pieces don't fucking fit. Now that I've made my therapist proud, I'll get to the point. We all still want the same thing. A safe, stable world. We're willing to compromise our methods if you've got a better option. That's not how things work in A6K. We've seen that. They only compromise when it's do or die. They take shortcuts. They try to break Phenom, like that's ever a fucking good idea. A6K is a problem, and frankly, we should be treating it like we treated so many other problem dimensions. We can't trust them. The Global Peacekeeping Initiative votes no.
When we first met, out of some strange cross-universal courtesy, I'd recommended Primrose paralyze me. 22 hours later, she'd just done that. I sat frozen on that hilltop, holding my knees to my chest. I couldn't blink. I couldn't breathe. The blood was frozen in my veins, refusing to pass through my heart. The gears of my mind ground to a screeching, cracking halt. Unity or erasure? When that wall of anxiety weakened just the slightest bit, a frantic burst of contingencies erupted from my mind. They spread out before me like steep, jagged paths. I could run back to the chair, maybe. I could ask it to bring me to the rooftop again. I could find some way to return to my reality, to warn them. Should I warn them? Would it matter? Would they believe me? Could they stop the compendium? Would they strike first? Would I just be deciding whether to destroy this reality or my own? How could I trust people I've known for less than a day? How could I trust a ruling body I'd never even seen? How could I trust my own reality? I'd never seen the council either. I turned to look at Primrose, and she gave me an expression I truly couldn't place. It was like she was holding a very large breath. There's no invasion, is there?
Gatekeeper, no. Oh, gracious mother of both Pantheon old and new, you really are the most gullible man I've ever met.
I just got here, Primrose. Of course I'm gullible. Christ, well, what does unity actually mean?
Contact. Unity means reaching out to your reality and offering a discourse. That's it. That's all.
Then call it contact.
The compendium is a scientific institute, David. They like using fancy words.
I fell back into the grass, hands splayed, and stared up at the stars. You're an asshole, Primrose.
Oh, serves you right. I told you not to ask why.
So, they just want to talk to us.
Start. After a time, after we're all settled in with one another, then we start bringing over humanitarian aid. Maybe some low-level technology if you want it. It's still an invasion of a kind, just very slow. Completely voluntary invasion. The moment you guys tell us to get lost, we get lost.
And what if there's a disagreement on that? What if one part of our world wants you there, and the other doesn't?
Doesn't matter. It's gotta be unanimous. Once you guys can come to some kind of consensus, some kind of alliance, a shared scientific council for the betterment of the world, if you will, then you call us back.
And you do this often?
Often enough. We have these kind of votes whenever we stumble onto a new dimension. It's not often the whole compendium needs to be called, though. Usually it's pretty cut and dry if we approach unity. The answer is usually no. It may just be talking, but we do realize the disabling effect it can have. After all, like you said, what if some people want us to say and others don't? It might bring about alliances, or it could cause global war.
And you don't actually destroy realities when they vote no.
No, David, of course we don't. Ironically, the dimensional ruptures are one of the phenomena we actually do contain. We seal it off, obscure it, and monitor it. Destroying a whole reality. I don't think the compendium even has that kind of power. Probably. There have been rare times where we've offered mercy, I suppose, but those have been dimensions where literally everything has gone right to hell. Your reality isn't that far gone, and you're certainly not a threat. You're just, well, clearly you're a serious gray area.
I didn't know what to say to any of that. It almost felt wrong that there wasn't some grand calamity on the horizon, some awful punchline to this adventure. I just lay there, zen-like in my total disbelief of the universes. Primrose sighed and settled down next to me.
David, I know more about alternative realities than anybody in my world. I certainly know more than you. No offense, I've been at it 60 years longer. Tell you the truth, I have no idea why our worlds are so different, and yet so similar. I don't know if it's the chicken or the egg with you people and your phenom. Does your hostile reality make you aggressive and distrustful, or is it your distrust and aggression making your reality hostile? Is it you? Is it circumstance? Is A6K just one big tempest in a teapot, fired out of control? And for our part, are we just fundamentally different from you? Or are we just the product of some nebulous domino effect from thousands of years ago, when one human decided to be kind to another?
She shrugs.
It's a finicky ball of string, our scientific field. That's also a cat phrase, by the way, you can't use it.
I glance over at her for a moment. 60 years, huh? How old are you? She bats at my face hard and then stalks off towards the chair. The sun begins to rise.
The compendium recognizes the Foundation.
It always comes down to us, doesn't it? It's only fair. We did start all of this. We've seen worlds hollowed, fed up to a screaming, wrought iron moon. We've seen planets consumed by death, undeath, and repugnant life. We've seen it all horribly end and folding under a bleak red sun. I would never hold any reality to some perverse contest to calamity, but I can say what has pained me the most, seeing a beautiful, pristine world of happy people, only to arrive just as all the flowers bloomed. We couldn't even tell them what was coming. There was so little time. Forgive me, I don't mean to wallow in the past. You need us to be the rational ones, right? We all need to admit a terrible truth. A6K is the closest we've ever come to finding a true parallel reality. We may sit here condemning them, but the fact remains, we've never found anyone quite as so much like us. We rose from the dark together and stronger for our hardships. Who's to say they won't do the same? They could be our equals. They could even rise above us one day. But that triumph can't come from us. It has to come from them.
The Foundation votes no, but with an addendum. We seal the gate, but not entirely. We keep an eye on A6K and let them find us. When they do, we'll greet them without security, containment, or any protections. When they're ready to step into the light, we'll be here. Shall we take it to a vote?
And there we were, back on the rooftop again. My lab coat appeared with me, hanging off the back of the chair. I thanked it twice and told it what a wonderful job it had done today. It gave a pleasant little rattle. Primrose sat where I'd first seen her, but now she was facing away. I walked up and stood with her, watching the sun rise for a second time, now over the vast canopy of incredible architecture, vibrant green and polished white. I never did ask how they grew ivy so large. I decided not to. I didn't need to know. It was spectacular. And that was enough.
I didn't think it'd be that close.
I look over to her.
The vote, I mean. I knew the charity would be on board. They love helping the helpless, and you're world is the very definition of helpless.
Primrose.
The Apex 2, maybe. My vote had to count for something, plus the K9 Collegiate are all about inclusivity. But the amphibian pod can be such sticks in the mud.
Primrose.
And it was anyone's guess about how the people of the forest would vote. It always is. The Nocturnals are a real surprise given what you people did to them. But what good goddamn was the collective even saying? Do you understand a single?
Hey, Primrose. She stops talking, but won't look at me. Much as I'd learned about how a cat emotes in this world, I couldn't read her at all. I could guess how she was feeling though. Thank you for today. And, sorry, I forced you to let the cat out of the bag about... Ah, sorry, is that a cat-only phrase?
You can use it.
You've got a very strange, but very beautiful world here, Primrose.
It could be your world too, you know.
It was my turn to be silent. I watched the sky turn from a muted orange to a pale, promising blue.
I mean, I can't just pluck you out of A6K again once it's sealed. But there's no real reason I have to send you back. I'm sure I could come up with an excuse for the compendium. Some long-term cross-cultural transdimensional quantum quarking... I'll figure it out. And if you're worried about your SCP people, we can just send back a clone. Or an android, or... We recently found those lentil-based human mimicking life forms in Nepal. They can only drool and stumble around, but I doubt your stupid reality will notice.
I smile weakly. Her words eventually faded into a low mumble, and by the time I turned to look at her, her head was hanging low. It really was an incredible day.
You're not going to tell them, are you? Your bosses, I mean.
The SCP Foundation? Good God, no. I'll make something up for them. But actually, I can think of someone who would appreciate all of this. They're always up for a good story, and they can keep a secret. She nods, and I tuck my hands into my coat. Without any great fanfare or farewell, I knew it was time to go. But before I did, I asked Primrose for one last thing. She grumbled, but agreed. I pet her head and vanished.
Everyone in this room, please do not worry. You will have amnestics dealt because you will not remember this entire conversation.
Does that include me? Because you just banned me from amnestics.
Not you.
And me?
Not you. Everybody else in this room,
Yes.
don't worry. That's why the people have been in here since the beginning. Go ahead.
Sorry, you know how much I love forbidden knowledge.
Well,
I'm just saying, we should look into this whole, like, sentient cat girl thing.
before they forget everything, Caspian is a good man. And him sending this information to me, it means a lot. I'd like to see what happened. And I do wish to one day proceed down into their reality and get a good talk with them. One day.
I like to think it'd be nice to visit at least, but we know the Foundation all too well. It's not going to end well. Goddamn 05.
Anyway, thank all of you C-Class for being here. You have completed training. You all are dismissed for the day.
Enjoy working with the Foundation. Remember, don't touch other people's lunches, or you may be finding yourself accidentally ingesting a mysterious goo. Also, don't look in the mirrors when you're asleep. Okay, enjoy. Bye-bye now. Bye now.
What?
Bye-bye now.
Go ahead and hang back again, man. Alice, you can go ahead and go. Enjoy the promotion. It's incredible.
Thank you. Thank
Well
you.
done. Proud of you. Very proud of you. That sounded so sarcastic, but believe me, I mean it.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
You Good. I wanted to keep you back and actually discuss something before we got too invested with change of plans and everything. A lot of
Is
the
this-
information that I've been filtering into what we've been learning is for a very specific purpose. I believe that back when I imprinted the eye, that you're able to. I don't think you've learned, but you can actually turn it on, so to speak. Much as mine. Give me a moment. Let me just. Yeah. You gotta press hard on the column, but when you do it, you can see things. Something very different. The reason I pulled up 6001 is because back when I was trying to get information for it, that I found a way to see into a little bit of an augmented reality. Much
Is
like,
that so?
much like data and everything.
Mm,
But I wanted you to know this because you need to see something. Something that I've been wondering about for a very long time. It actually comes from one of the
I forgot my clipboard.
Well,
What
you
the
should know better than that.
here.
What the
it's
fuck
just
is
over
going on?
here.
How-
No, it's too late for that.
How long have you been stood there?
Grab her.
Long
Oh,
enough.
for fuck's sake, come here
Don't
now. Come, don't
touch me.
fight me. Don't
Get
fight
away from me.
It's okay.
No.
Give her the candy. Give her the
No.
candy. Come on now.
Don't
Open up
touch
your,
me.
Open up your mouth.
Shh. Come on now. Shh.
It's okay.
There we go.
Calm
You're safe now. There.
down. Alice, you okay? You seem to have fallen over.
Huh?
Come on, get up off the floor,
Come
woman.
on.
I'm sorry.
You would trip over your own feet if they weren't screwed onto your legs.
You also seem to have left your clipboard here. There.
Thanks. I must have not eaten enough today.
That's because somebody keeps stealing your lunch. Naming no names, of course.
Well, I'll see you guys later.
No worries.
Okay, bye now. Bye now.
See you next week.
Bye.
That was too fucking close. We can't be having that happen again. Or.
We'll speak again in 2 weeks, Frank. Until then.
Yes, my friend. I will see you then. Keep yourself safe and keep it kushti.
Give yourself a bit of time. Go ahead and use what I told you while you're home. You
I will
never
do
know
that.
what you'll find.
I will do that. Okay. I will try that for sure.